everybody out there. Welcome to another episode of Terrorific Talk, episode number 26 to be exact. And with me, I have a self-described lover of all horror ever, and his name is Pika Punch. So, welcome, Pika. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. Thanks for having me. How are you doing, yo?
Oh, well, you're turning it back on me. I'm doing absolutely great. I am excited to finally get you on. I know it's been in the works for months, and then it was supposed to be yesterday. And thank you for your patience as far as me asking you to push it forward an extra day. And
Yo, don't even worry about it. I'm just happy to be on in general, yo. Ever since I heard that you had a horror podcast, I'm like, yo, I'm all about that. I need to get on that, dude. And it's every time that I'm here, it seems like I don't know. It's a good time, you know. Sorry, I don't say much in chat. Normally, I'm one of the lurker peeps. I like to listen to people talk, and like you talk about a lot of horror stuff, and I like horror, so it works.
hey, perfect fit.
Yeah. So like actually yesterday too, you were playing Alien Isolation.
Uh-huh.
And that's my jam, dude. So I was just like here, I was like typing some stuff out because I've been working on like bits and junk, and just watching you get down. That's one of my favorite horror games. Period.
Yeah, and I got really mad at one part, so I just couple parts actually, because that one part in particular just made me rage a lot. But yeah, sometimes that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Let me go ahead and now ask you to introduce yourself to start off with. So you create content on Twitch. I know that you said that you're on a hiatus for this month, but whenever you're not on hiatus, let's kind of talk about your Twitch channel and what you like to do on there.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I mean, I was introduced as Pika Punch, but my name is Cesar or Caesar, whichever is easier for you to say. I kind of like not necessarily pigeonholed myself into it, but I just kind of found myself within the Nintendo community. So like the Nintendo Switch and specifically Splatoon 2 is what I do, as well as just any type of story-based game that my chat wants me to do type deal. But like you said, I have been on hiatus simply just because I wasn't feeling stuff anymore. There's a lot of lack of wanting to do stuff, and I didn't really like the way that I was feeling as I did it. So I was just kind of like, you know what? You loved to do this in the beginning. It's okay to take a break, do whatever. And just recently, I put out a video on YouTube, but I'm not predominantly a YouTube person or anything. It was just kind of something I did because well, I had the time to do so. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was a long, drawn out response, but essentially, I play a lot of stuff, Nintendo-based games.
Ah, so you're a Nintendo streamer. Have any horror games leaked on your channel every now and again since you're a
Okay.
horror fan?
Actually, well, when I started, it was predominantly PC stuff, and don't get me wrong, I game on everything. It's just specifically on Twitch, I do Nintendo stuff. But I started off with all the games that everybody else does, Outlast, and then Soma.
Mm-hmm.
What's the one? Amnesia. I was gonna say what's the one with the pigs and stuff. So it's I've played all of that on stream and junk, and yeah, I mean it's really cool to be able to share that experience with everybody. I think the whole thing with streaming is just that immediate, response and interaction, and it's a fun time. And it's always great when you jump and other people jump, so it's you don't feel dumb you know what I mean, going it's I don't know, it's been a wild ride, and I'm really happy where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that, kind of going off topic of horror, is what attracted me to Twitch initially too to begin with. Is just like the instant interactivity where you could say something that people just like immediately, or with the 3 second delay or however long the delay is, say something back. It's like it's really cool. I really just, and then 4 years later, here I am. I don't know how long you've been on Twitch. How long have you been on Twitch?
It's going to be 2 years in June. So like the tail end of June, it'll be
Wow.
about 2 years.
Ooh. So might we be looking forward to like any kind of celebration stream near the end of June?
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about doing like a comeback, like maybe mid-June, and then kind of have a hype going for um, the anniversary type deal. But I'm not sure yet because I'm really enjoying my time off. You know, I do want to come back to streaming. I miss the community like entirely. Like it hurts, but at the same time, it's like I love just being able to do my thing right now. I for so long had not been able to play video games for myself. It's always been like for the stream, and I don't know, now I get excited for things again. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for with stream.
Yeah, sometimes it's just there's no harm in taking a break just to like mentally reset yourself, so to speak.
Oh yeah, that's a perfect way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, now let's kind of steer the conversation now to horror.
For sure.
Yes,
For sure.
yes. So, horror, what is it about it that revs your engine?
Geez. It's it's fun to be scared. You know, it's to just to be like very blatant about it. It's super fun to be scared because it's like your heart gets going, you know, you get like super frantic at times, or you know, horror invokes different types of emotion for everybody, you know, and different levels of it as well. So but like at the end of it all, regardless of how you feel it or how you experience it, you're still there. You know what I'm saying? It's like you went through the whole motion, you're like, oh my gosh, whatever happened happened, and then you're like you're there at the end of it all, and it's always super fun to I don't know, just go through it all. I know I'm like sounding redundant, but like that's what I love about horror is the fact that I get to be scared but not have it to experience it myself, obviously.
So the feeling of it's fun to be scared, but to be scared in kind of like a controlled environment, to where just like whenever it's all over, like, whew, okay, now I can just like be myself again, in a sense.
Exactly, because it's like, I mean, I wouldn't want to get chased down by like a dude wielding a chainsaw, or you know what I mean? Like just anything like that along those lines. It's like I don't want to have to deal with any of that IRL, and I don't think anybody would. So, yeah.
No, really? People would want to be chased with a chainsaw?
I mean, you never know. People are weird nowadays. Like you see what's in the limelight now. I mean, it's just like okay, so like I know you wanted to do like a whole progression of horror type deal, so it's
Uh-huh.
like so like nowadays the stuff that's in the limelight is like everything. So you'll see like that weird horror gore stuff, but then you'll get like your art house films, and um we see stuff like possession type deals. So it's really wild how like throughout how like horror started and how like there was certain periods in time and like stuff was most prevalent. We're at a point where it's like all there, you know what I mean? So like I wouldn't be surprised if you know we saw people who enjoyed that over other things, because it's like it's almost like generally accepted now as opposed to you know where it began. um I actually wanted to ask you about Nosferatu, uh,
Uh-huh.
because like when you think about that movie, it's like there's like a genuine plot there. There's like something to go through, and there's it's almost like a different type of horror. And when you think about what's horrific to the people back then to like right now, it's wild. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there's just a stark difference, and I feel like audiences back then like could follow along better because not only did they have to be so damn present and read all the damn things that were hard to read, mind you, because like my very first time watching it, like I had to read through that like weird scribbly like
Yes,
font.
yes.
Like, I didn't get to read with like subtitles or anything, so half the time I didn't know what was going on, and then like he ends up dying in the end, and I was like, for sure. And then I was sad because I was like, oh crap, the lady died too. I was like, dang, all that stuff, like, fudge, dude. So I don't know. My whole point on this whole like little ramble here is like, it's very interesting to see how like different points in time have different things that are horrific to them or would invoke that type of response to them.
Yeah, you definitely make a good point. It kind of makes me think of that one Halloween episode of The Simpsons where Lisa was reading Bart The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, and
My,
then
like, favorite. Oh my gosh.
and Bart was like, Lisa, that was even scary, not even for a poem. She's like, well, it was written in 1845. Maybe people were easier to scare back then.
True. True. That's so funny that you bring that up. Because like The Simpsons is my favorite show of all time. Like that is top tier. That's my favorite one. Go to all the time.
Yeah, their Halloween episodes those are the ones that have always been my favorite.
Yeah, that's actually their very first Treehouse of Horror special, is that whole Edgar Allan Poe thing. That's kind of how I like was first introduced to Edgar Allan Poe, if I'm gonna be completely honest.
Hey, and that just goes to show that even pop culture things like The Simpsons can introduce people to the what's called like the capital L literature or the cultural stuff like Edgar Allan Poe.
Word.
And going off of I like Edgar Allan Poe too, things like The Telltale Heart, The Cask of Amontillado, Mask of the Red Death. It's just like he was just like ugh. He like I can see like why like he's not considered like scary like now in the traditional sense, like you mentioned, like what's scary now versus maybe what was scary back then. But to me, I don't know. There's just something about Poe.
Yeah, I feel like just the way he sets up everything, even something as meticulous as setting up like a morgue. You know what I mean? Like even just like setting things up, it's not just like, oh, they're in a room. You know, he describes it all. He definitely sets the tone, sets the mood. And I think someone like more contemporary like Stephen King, I feel like he does something very similar but with like a lot less use of like colorful language, whereas Poe is more like a poet. You know what I mean? Not to sound like dumb or nothing. I don't know, someone like Stephen King is more like, this is happening, and it's like really hard for you not to imagine because it's very like, this is happening right now, whatever it is. I think like one of the best examples for that would be what's it called? Like the Tales of like Rue Morgue or something like that, by Edgar Allan Poe.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's the one where the dude gets his thing chopped off because they like he's not actually dead. And then like they get like the reaction is to like cut it off because it's like up for whatever it is. I'm trying to be very vague here, but like I'm pretty sure that's that story. But the way it starts off is like very like scary type deal. And then I don't know, man. I was just thinking about that. That's so funny how like he could even like switch it up. But I don't know, that's just like one of my favorites from his. I can't think of like any specific examples right now or whatever to give you like of his language, but I think we can just say as a general sense like he was dope.
Yeah.
To put very, very bluntly.
Yeah, he was dope. And then someone, Dan said, chat, dude, spoilers. Stop spoiling an almost like 250-year-old story.
I apologize. I think I'm gonna spoil a couple of things. Like I apologize. Like just as a warning for right now.
Yeah, I'd say you're safe with not spoiling Edgar Allan Poe. It's just like that stuff's been around for like a little over 200 years, so people want to read it. They can read it. And horror back then played off a lot of people's horror. Is even now horror plays off people's fears. A lot of people's fears back, during and post time was being buried alive. That was a legitimate fear for people back then. And horror has definitely come a long way since those days, in the days of black and white horror. We're talking about the days of pre-code horror, whenever there was no rating system. And so there's just something about horror. What makes you think, so my question to you is, like, why do you think horror has stuck around for so long? Like, why do you feel that people still love it and still consider it relevant?
I feel like you almost answered that, like, way better than I could have, because it's always relevant to, like, what's going on, you know what I'm saying? So, like, just the example you use is, like, being buried alive back then, there are horror films that deal with, like, virus stuff or whatever, right? So, like, all right, let's think. Like there are certain, like, what's that movie with Tim Curry, where, like, evils pass through, like, liquid or blood? Is that the one? Am I thinking of the correct movie?
Oh. I don't.
Well, whatever it is, it's like this green stuff or whatever it is, and I think I watched this, like, awesome wisecrack video, like however long ago, and one of the very like, one of the points he makes is, like, how relevant it is or whatever it is to whatever. So I'm trying to think. So, like, today and age, we have stuff that's, like, I don't know, political horror or whatever it is.
Yes.
So, like, American Horror Story had that one arc or whatever it is that had to deal with, like, the election. We have stuff like, and then this is, like, almost blatantly from that video, but, like, the Babadook has stuff to do with, like, being a single mother and then dealing with that type of loss. And then we have stuff like, the Conjuring, which is, kind of like, an old school throwback, almost haunted house type deal, but it's more deal with, like, possession and ghosts and junk. But my point there is, like, I feel like the relevancy for today's age is almost all of it. I said this earlier on, where it's like we're at a point where it's accepted to have all of these types of genres, and I don't know, I feel like it's cool for us because we get to experience it, as opposed to, like, back then where there were certain things about it. So think about, when, like, the war on drugs was, like, a huge thing, back in the day. That was, like, kind of the rise of, like, teen slasher films type deals. So if you think of, like, Michael Myers, he straight up, killed his sister because she would rather, bang than take care of him and stuff. And it's like all the people in that movie were partaking in some, like, some stuff. And the same thing with, like, Friday the 13th and all those types of films. Like, every time someone dies, they're doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, or in the eyes of the public back then, was really looked down upon. And it's just, I don't know, it's funny to see how what's spoken out against through every medium, and even in horror.
Exactly. You bring up a good point, how, in a sense, horror is a vehicle, or it can be a platform for people to be able to speak out or speak on certain issues. And you brought up a good point, how also here too, that we're starting to see a little bit more political horror. Like, if you, The Purge is a good example of that. Jordan Peele with his movies Get Out, Us, which I haven't seen yet, his iteration of The Twilight Zone, and people are kind of acting shocked that from not all people, but some, from what I have seen, that they're saying that almost like speaking out on social issues and political issues in horror, they're acting like it's some kind of new phenomenon. But it's like, nope, not true. George Romero did it in 1968's Night of the Living Dead, where he was commenting on the issue of racism.
Yeah, he snapped. I actually saw this one documentary or whatever, where the guy straight up said it's like only George Romero had the balls to have a black man slap, a white woman in that video, or in that, not video, but the movie. And it wasn't like an act of like, anger or malice or anything. It was to get her to snap out of it. But us seeing that, we can see that. You know what I'm saying? Back then, the mindset of the public wasn't that. That's like, yo, that's an attack on whatever. But no, that dude was taking charge of the situation. He was making sure that everyone was, present so that they could deal with the freaking zombies who were trying to, eat their guts and such. And then the way it ends is heartbreaking as well. Yeah, it's like they go through all that stuff, and it's like, nope.
And that's also one of the things just about horror that I kind of enjoy, is that you necessarily don't get the happy ending.
Yeah, isn't that like super fun though? Because it's like we're so used to like having a happy ending. Like I think one of the best examples of that was Nightmare on Elm Street. I think it's the second one where they all get on the bus and then it turns into like the Freddy Krueger bus type deal, and it's all scary, and then they drive off and then everybody dies, and it's like, yo, screw that, man. Like just the whole premise of that, first off, like, yo, you're not even safe in your dreams, screw you. Second off, you're not even safe going to school, and that's the end. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like you're done for. And like for me, I got to watch all those types of like movies and junk. I don't know if they have this like where you're located, but there's this show called Svengoolie, and he would do an old school horror film like every week on Saturday. So that's actually how I got into like horror and stuff, and continued with like the classics like Frankenstein and like the Wolfman or Swamp Thing. He just went into like all these cool ones, all the classics, I guess you could say. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
Oh no, that's what this podcast is for. So you mentioned classic horror and Svengoolie. Would you say that's where horror first started to really fascinate you and catch your attention?
Actually, all right, this is gonna be like a really long story or whatever, because it's kind of like an odd answer, because that's what continued my horror interest. It kind of like started with stuff like Goosebumps, as lame to say or whatever. So like I used to read and watch the Goosebumps series, and like Animorphs too. Like that's more like science fiction or whatever. But like I loved like Animorphs and all that junk. So like any type of like gross out or any type of like science fiction, any type of like horror thing interests me because of Goosebumps, and that's where it stemmed out. But the very first horror film that I ever saw was actually because of a mistake at Hollywood Video. I don't know if you know what Hollywood Video is.
Yes, I know what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So like, back in the day, it used to be a huge deal to go with your family to, rent films, you know what I'm saying? And like, when I was younger, like my family would go and do that every weekend, like every Saturday or Sunday. Couldn't be both days. It had to be one. We would go to the McDonald's that was across the street from the Hollywood Video. And then we would go to Hollywood Video, and then we would get whatever it is and come home. And they had there's like this 2-part episode, I think, of like this night castle thing or whatever it is, where these kids get stuck in this castle type deal overnight. And they had it on video, so I was like, dope, I want to watch that. I am super excited. Let's do it up. And I get home, and it is not Goosebumps. See, the movie I got was titled The Curse of the Werewolf. And I think it came out in like 1960s or 1980s, or I could be wrong, either or. But it was like my very first horror film. I remember putting in the VHS and stuff, and thinking like, yo, this is not Goosebumps. where's the title, where's the whole theme song, whatever it is. But I didn't want to get in trouble because I had the wrong movie. And then at the same time, I was like, yo, I'm gonna watch this. This looks awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I want. I want to be scared. I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old at the time. You know what I'm saying? So I was not ready for what I was about to watch. And I think like the defining moment for me, and like what stands out in my mind from that movie more than anything, was like the transformation scene. Because his lady is like behind him trying to be like, oh no, like what's going on, are you okay? And he's like looking out at the moon and grabbing at these like bars and like the window type deal, and he's like, get away from me. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, get out of here, dude, I'm freaking kill you, dude. Like, I have no idea what's about to go down. And I just remember thinking like, yo, like this is what I want to see in Goosebumps, you know what I mean? Like give me the horrific stuff, you know what I'm saying? Give me the violence. But yeah, that was my first foray into horror, was that movie, and it was a mistake at Hollywood Video. And well, since then, or whatever it is, because I had like the taste for it and all, it was a TV show, that Svengoolie thing, where he would kind of like interject in between like commercial breaks or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And he would just be funny. He'd just like make fun of the movie, and he'd be goofy, and then we'd go right back into whatever like horrific thing it is. And I don't know, I really liked it because he introduced me to like so many, you know, different types of like horror genres as well. And speaking of like being funny and stuff, like Abbott and Costello, like those horror movies, like, you know, Meet the Wolfman, Meet Frankenstein, those were so awesome at being like hilarious. Like, oh, okay, we're in the funny parts, and then it's like, no, that it's scary again, you know? So I don't know, it's pretty dope, like how I got introduced to horror, and how, like, you know, prevalent it's been in my life. Like it's a thing, and it's like it's the main reason that I wanted to be on this podcast, because it's just like I like to gush about, you know, horror in general. So
Oh, no, really? You like to gush? I wouldn't have guessed.
Oh, well.
It's always comforting for me to go back to the familiar in horror, like where I got my start was in the 80s. So I'm talking like 80s slasher films, Freddy Krueger, like you mentioned. I know you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Michael Myers isn't 80s, but he's close enough. 78 is when the first one came out. And then, of course, Jason. And I don't know, that's where I got my start. And even though I like the new horror stuff, I always end up going back to what's familiar. It's my favorite era. So speaking of, I'm going to make you think on this one here for a second. If you had to choose any era in horror, it doesn't necessarily have to be any current eras. It could be like the older time eras as well, 30s, 40s, whatever. What would you say your favorite horror era is?
I would say probably the pre-code era that you're talking about, because like I'm a sucker for, like, you know, practical effects. I'm a sucker for, like, you know, just ridiculous amounts of gore. It's just like, why did that happen? There's no point for that to the plot other than to give us gratuitous, you know what I mean? Like I really like I don't know if you would call that like maybe the 60s or 70s, but I don't know, I can't really say like a specific, like, you know, era. I mean, what time frame did The Thing come out, like the remake?
So we're talking John Carpenter's The Thing. That was 1982, June 25th, 1982.
Okay, so that's like a little too far or whatever. But like that's like my favorite horror film. So like I don't want to say outside of that, but there are other movies that are better outside of that time frame. You feel me?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's actually a hard question.
So it's more specific. You don't like to prescribe to anyone's specific era in horror. You're just like, if it's good, I'll watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Cause I'll watch it. Cause you mentioned like George A. Romero. Like he's my favorite. Zombie stuff or whatever. So I love stuff from like Day of the Dead to dumb stuff like trauma films like Toxic Avenger. Like the high school one, whatever it is, Nukem High or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
I like stuff to I don't know if you've seen like The Others with like Nicole Kidman. Uh,
Yes. Yes, I have.
I haven't seen like Hereditary, but I hear that like that's like a really good one or whatever.
You
But
must.
what was I gonna say? The Witch was dope. I like The Witch or whatever. That's so what I'm saying here. The reason I'm like naming all these things is because it's like I'm not pigeonholed to like one type of thing. And even if it's like bad, like I usually try to find like some type of merit. I usually try to sit through whatever it is because it's like, all right, man, there's a catch here. There's always a catch. Like there's always something. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm forgiving when it comes to horror.
Are you sure? So there's no like horror films out there that you've watched and you're just like, I don't mind bad movies, but this is bad.
All right. You know what? There's this movie with Vince Vaughn called Wendigo. And it's about that exactly. I don't know. They explain it and stuff where there's like uh they're on like a burial ground or something like that or whatever, and these Native Americans like explain whatever the hell it is, and I don't know, it's really dumb because it starts off like really ominous and then goes nowhere, and then we get one flash of whatever it is, and it's literally like a deer man with his hands doing this, and it's for 2 seconds, like straight up, it's like for 2 seconds, and then like some stuff happens, and then the family leaves, and they have to like kill a deer. It's dumb. I was like, this is a dumb movie. I don't know why I sat through this.
A deer with his hands going, eh.
Yeah, he was just like, "Yo, what up, hey?" And I was like, "All right, that's their scare, that's their jump, that's what the whole movie was about." And then I sat there and I thought, and I was like, "Dude, no one else memorable is in this movie. They spent all of their budget on Vince Vaughn. Like they wanted him in that movie. That's why it was so damn bad. Like they couldn't spend any more money on anything else. You got 2 seconds of Deer Man."
Okay, well that's one movie I'm definitely not gonna watch.
Please don't.
Yeah, please. Also, so I will like put forth to you my worst the worst horror film that I watched. Do not, if you haven't already, do not watch Dracula 3000.
Dracula 3000. Why do I feel like I have seen that though?
Oh, Dracula basically in space.
Okay, no, I haven't seen that. I don't know. I'm thinking of Vampires. I don't know if you've seen Vampires, but
John
that movie's
Carpenter's
not good either.
John Carpenter's Vampires.
No, that's Vampires with the Z. I'm talking
Oh.
about Vampires, like YAZ. Like, it's okay. So in the early like 2000s era, like late 90s, there's like this whole thing where like rappers and were making like horror films and stuff. I don't remember who made Vampires, but there's like Snoop Dogg's whatever, Tales in the Hood or whatever, and they're so bad. They're terrible, but they're so fun to watch because it's like they're bad, but you're gonna get some cheap gory effects, and it's always like a funny tale. You know what I'm saying? And there's always three for whatever the hell reason, and I don't know, they're goofy.
Yeah, I do remember Tales from the Hood. It's like it was goofy, but it was a fun watch.
It was a fun watch. There's I don't know. There's like a bunch of like goofy-ish movies from like that era. Like, are you familiar with the Leprechaun series?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so those are god awful, right? But they make me laugh so damn much. And then you get like your gore here and there. It's like, all right, it's not the best, but I'll deal with it. It's kind of worth. But yo, Dracula 3000. I know you said not to watch it, but I might because I like bad movies. Like, I can't help it. But do you have like a synopsis for it? Like, you got me like a little description.
Okay, so basically Dracula 3000 is this salvage crew that comes across this ship that's floating in space, and of course, Dracula's on that ship, and I guess they didn't have enough to spend a budget like on a decent costume for him because it just looks like he got it from a party store. That's basically just like what he looks like. It's just so. So since you're gonna watch it, I'm gonna warn you, it's like about as bad as you described like Wendigo.
Okay.
Probably.
Alright, then I'll brace myself for sure.
Yes.
I'll make it fun somehow. Like.
Yes, because so don't say I told you so because I'm telling you so. So if you have to suffer through it, I will pray for your soul.
For sure. But like it's so funny because like you said the whole beginning part of that felt like aliens.
Yeah.
Like these people just came up and found this stuff, and it's like, all right.
I mean, I mean, the premise was there. It's basically, what would you do if you were in space with vampires or Dracula, as it were, and there is no sunlight to save you? That's an interesting premise. It was just not done well.
For sure. I'd rather just watch Aliens.
Just
sounds dope.
Just go watch Aliens or play Dead Space.
For sure. Or watch Event Horizon if you want like that type of imagery, Dead Space style.
Exactly. So we've been talking about kind of like the bad and the good bad horror films. Like I know you mentioned a few kind of guilty pleasure horror films like that you watch, but are there any others beyond what you mentioned where you're just like, I know it's bad, but I don't care. This is a movie I'll watch again and again.
Wow, okay. That one's hard. I mean, I wouldn't say this is like a guilty pleasure because I know a lot of people like this. There's an audience for it. Like, the whole Evil Dead series is like super campy, cheesy, whatever. Like, it's just very much in the vein of what I like. Like, Ash Williams, like, dude's a beast. Like, Hail the freaking king, I haven't seen all of Ash versus the Evil Dead. I know they have like a series and stuff. I'm like maybe 4 or 5 episodes in. I may have finished the first season, come to think of it, because there's only like 8. So I might have finished that. But I don't know, I'm trying to think like really deep, dirty, like, you watch that type of pleasures? I'm trying to think, like, I don't know, I guess I kind of just, like, mentioned, like, those like, really B-rate horror films where it's, like, why there's no point to this. Even though I hate Wendigo, I like watching those types of films. Because I like seeing the effort that's put into it. Like, all right, how much can we do with this amount of budget? And there's something about that type of feel, like shoestringing, like barely having anything type deal that's I don't know, charming. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they tried. I'm not scared, but you tried. You know what I mean? I know what you're going for.
Yep. Except in Wendigo, like you said, they blew all the budget on Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I'd say like I already mentioned like Trauma, so like Toxic Avenger. I'll watch all the time. Like that's one of my favorites. Really dumb stuff like Evil. It's not Evil. It's Dead Alive. Have you seen Dead Alive? It's like Peter Jackson's film before the Lord of the Rings series.
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've ever watched those. No.
For sure. I think it also goes by Brain Dead. And I think it's in like the Guinness Book of World Record of being like the bloodiest film of all time, like using the most fake blood ever. And I believe it because it's just like an entire practical effects gore fest, and it's so much fun. It's so campy, and it's purposely hilarious too. Like it's an actual horror comedy. So yeah, that's probably my biggest guilty pleasure is that movie because I get to laugh and be like, gross.
I think a couple of my guilty pleasure films are like anytime Freddy vs. Jason is on, I'll watch it. I know it's on Netflix right now, but it's like, come on, it's 2 of the biggest slasher horror icons of all time, Freddy and Jason. Sure, was it done well? No. Was it fun? Yes. And
yeah, they got one-liners too. Like, it's so funny, dude.
Yeah. Well, Freddy got the one-liners. Jason was still showing silent type in that film. And then another one, I guess you'd call it like a guilty pleasure, is the movie Ghost Ship.
We've talked about this on Twitter.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Ghost Ship was a film I think that came out. I can't remember if it was 2003 or 2004. Now, because the exact year is escaping me. But what people talk about most in that movie is the beginning. And I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. I think it's still on Netflix. Go watch it. But that beginning, that's what I remember the most about that film.
Definitely. I mean, it's memorable because it's like it's so innocent and sweet, and you're like, all right, for sure, I can dig it. I can dig it. I mean, you know it's coming. You know something's gonna happen, but I'm like, all right, I can dig it. And then it happens, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, because it's just like, nope, we're just gonna go right into like the horror stuff. And I think I remember critics were lambasting it. It was just like so badly rated. And so I guess in that sense, it's just a guilty pleasure too. Just like, was it the best done film? No. At times, no. But I liked it. It's like you can't stop me from not liking it.
Yeah, I think with me, I couldn't get behind the whole fact. And I think this is that movie where they're like, treasure hunters type deal. And then they
like
go to the ships.
Yeah.
I thought, I couldn't get behind it. I thought it was cool at first. But the more that I was there, the more I was like, there's no way that they would have all of this. There's no way that anybody would just freely sail the seas and find a random wreckage. Like, this would have been cleaned up. You know what I mean? At least that's how I think about it or whatever. But it is a fun movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I always find some type of merit in those types of films because, I don't know, they tried. I got what they were going for. I got you.
Yeah, like with films like that too, I just like, I did get what they were going for. I thought it was unique, the whole aspect, how they were on a ghost ship, because I thought the location was cool. Another one that, what was it? And also we were talking about ones that were, man, they tried, but it just didn't quite come across very well. One that I didn't care too much for was Oculus. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's the one about the evil mirror.
Okay, and then I think I know this one where it's like at the end, like I'm trying to think. I feel like I've seen that one because it's like the guy at the end ends up not being crazy, and it's like the mirror's actually, evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one, right?
That
like, I think with his sister or whatever.
Yes.
Like someone killed whoever. Like, yeah, it was an interesting premise, but like that even goes to show you, even the way that I thought of it, like it wasn't memorable enough. Like, I totally get you. It just didn't work out. But that actually brings up like a really good question in my opinion. Like, how do you feel about movies that kind of like subvert expectations like that, where it starts out as a certain type of film and then it gives you the horror, or it maybe sets up a certain type of horror film and gives you a different, you know what I mean, kind, or even films that are like end up being like allegories for other things, like what are your favorite types of those films?
Well, to answer like the first part of that question, I feel like when I'm all for originality and I'm all for like different premises, I like with Oculus, it's just like, ooh, a cursed object. I mean, you don't really see too much of that in modern horror, at least like from my experience. So I was all in, like, this evil mirror, this cursed mirror, like, let's go. And then at the ending, the ending like kind of fell flat for me. It's just like, oh, I'm kind of getting everything else, like every like horror cliche that they didn't like present in the first half of the movie, like, which is a shame. And like types of films that I do like, or like one that we talked about, this one that sticks out in my mind is the Babadook, because it was marketed at first as just like, ooh, look at this monster, like, ooh, this monster, but it ended up being something else entirely. It wasn't about the monster in itself. Okay, for those who haven't seen it, I won't spoil, trying to like stay kind of as vague as possible, but the monster is a symbol for something else. And that's what I liked about that film. And even, it's not particularly horror, but this film kind of, people are about it, but I liked it. I thought it was decent. M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. Have you seen that one?
Okay, I see. Like, I didn't hate it as much as everybody else did, but I also didn't like it all that much. I felt like it was like such an interesting premise, and when it comes to the conclusion, I get why a lot of people were like, oh, you know what I mean? But I was like, that is a thought. You know what I mean? I was like, that is very interesting. That's a cool take. You know, something that I wasn't thinking of, and it's very easy for like that to for something like that to fall flat. Um, but like you said, it's really hard not to give credit to like where creativity. You know what I mean? At least they tried. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I'm thinking like another like contemporary movie, you know, that does like an allegorical like monster type deal, is It Follows. I don't know if you've seen It Follows.
Yes, I have. Yes.
This show, that's one of my faves, like of like, you know, a newer type film. Um, because it does it really well, and it's so ambiguous to where like people can relate to it in their own way. I know that they've outwardly said, I think it has to do with like abuse and then just having to like, you know, deal with the fact, you know, that's always there, but you can still, you know, live on type deal. Um, but I saw it as my own thing, you know what I mean? Like I related to it in a different way, but the fact that you know, that they could even make films like that nowadays, or just in general, you know, that are ambiguous enough for people to relate to in however they can, but also still be horrific and still, you know, instill that type of fear in you.
Do you,
Um,
do you think that ambiguity in horror also, because horror, the what they also I love about it is that you don't have to have everything explained to you. You don't have to know like why this person is evil. They just are. You don't have to know why they're going down the street and like stalking somebody and are obsessed with them. They just are. You don't have to know why this alien crash landed on this planet 100,000 years ago and is now like, you know, able to assimilate into people. They just do it. So do you think the ambiguity in horror, which I think is one of its greatest strengths, um, do you think it could also, the flip side, kind of hurt it in a little bit? Hurt it a little bit?
it really depends on how it's used.
Yeah.
Because like if you go like way back, like in the very beginning of the podcast, you brought up like the Necronomicon, I think. Like you brought up what's his name, H.P. Lovecraft and stuff.
Yes.
And a lot of like the way he describes horror or whatever, it's like undescribable. You know what I mean? And the fact that you don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
he deals with all these topics of just like this unknowing or whatever it is, and the reasons people lash out um to to things in general, whatever it is, usually has to do with the fact that they don't understand it. And if we don't understand something, if we have like zero, you know, familiarity with it, it makes it that much more scarier. So it really depends on like how it's used, because sometimes things can fall flat. Sometimes it could seem shallow and what's the word, lazy. But I feel like that in general has to deal with fear as an emotion in general. You know what I mean? Just like the whole concept of it is unknowing, and that's horrifying. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's really cool that they're using it so awesomely in contemporary horror and such. Um, but also like I was talking about like, you know, subverting expectations and stuff or whatever. Um, I know I've heard you mention this before, but like you've seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil,
Yes.
right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So that movie, first off, hilarious, right?
Yes.
Like their performances are right on. Like I'm so for those guys.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's Tucker or Dale, but like the burlier dude,
Hmm.
you cannot tell me that that's not a charming dude. You cannot tell me that you wouldn't want to be that dude's pal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, but to these teenagers, to these dumb ass teenagers or whatever it is, like they're like the hillbilly, you know, stereotypical whatever it is. Um, and I know that like George A. Romero did it in the way that he did, but that also, you know, goes to show you like, you know, just not judging like a book by its cover, not like, you know, going based off like someone else's appearances or whatever. Just the fact that not only could they do that with the genre, be funny, subvert expectations, but also still kind of like, you know, teach you a moral at the end of the day. Um, but the reason I brought that up or whatever is like, yo, like, what are some of your like straight up, you know, favorite films like in that vein?
So are we talking about just like horror comedies?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's go with just horror comedies. Yeah.
Okay, so of course I love Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That has to be like one of my favorites because I like the whole just like the flipping of the hillbilly stereotype. You're half hillbilly. That line just gets me every time. Like I die laughing at that line. And then also this is more, I guess you could consider it horror, but it's also like a little bit of a dark comedy as well. The Burbs with Tom Hanks and Bruce Dern and Rick Dukeman. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that's just...
No, but if it has Tom Hanks and Bruce Dern, like that's, like I know film in general, like that's Laura Dern's father.
Yes, yes.
Yes, that dude's a beast.
Yeah, and so that, I won't spoil it since you haven't seen it, but it's just basically this charming little suburb where things like the creepy neighbor and things go horribly wrong. That's about like all I will say about that one, but it is hilarious. It's also got Corey Feldman in it as well.
Okay.
So,
right, so when was this done? Like in the 80s?
1989.
Okay, alright, for sure.
Yeah, if you have Shudder, I think it's still on Shudder. I don't think it's on Netflix or Hulu like that, but I know for sure it's on Shudder the last time I checked.
Is it worth having Shudder? Because it's like, yo, there's some times where it's like, there's some movies that I want to watch and I know it's on there, but it's like, yo, is it worth paying this every month? Like, do you get your money's worth with it?
I feel like I definitely get my money's worth with it. It's got The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, if you're a fan of his. It's got like all sorts of horror from, it's got the kind of like the B-type horror that you said that you like. It's got some older stuff. It's got some newer contemporary stuff. It's got foreign horror, if you're a fan of foreign horror. A really good foreign horror movie on there is Terrified. It's a Portuguese horror film.
For sure.
And
have you seen like Record, like the Record series?
No, I have heard of them. I have been recommended them, and it's just like another set of movies, I guess, to put on my long list of movies I need to watch.
For sure. Those are super fun. They're like high tension, like, yo. Well, the third one is. The first two are kind of like more your traditional found footage, like, oh, okay, this is going on. But it is definitely a fun movie.
Yeah.
A fun series in general.
Yeah, the found footage, like, if it's done, like, too shaky cam, then I can't watch them because I have a weird, like, motion sickness thing going on with my eyes. So if it's like that, then I'm just gonna be like, bleh, but not because, like, it's terrible.
Okay, I'm, like, super excited. Like, the best found footage film that I've ever seen, period, is called Man Bites Dog. And it's not necessarily a horror film, but it's a very irksome, like very like, oh my gosh type of tale, because essentially it's these two filmmakers, these two documentary dudes, following a murderer and just doing his day-to-day things and how he, kills people. It's so wild, and he talks about his methodology of it. He talks about why he specifically, chooses the victims that he does. It's in French, it's in black and white, and I think it's on Hulu. It's my favorite found footage and probably my favorite black and white horror film, period. It's top notch, dude. What is it about like Italian horror and like French horror that they just know how to do in a way that it's like specifically like, what's the word? Haunting, I guess. You know what I'm saying? There's this what's that one zombie movie? I can't even think, but they're like on an island and they're like getting attacked or whatever it is, and I don't know, but that's one of my favorite ones. I'm sorry, I'm rambling again.
All right. I don't know if what you're describing is Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh no, definitely not.
That's
that one's wild though. That one's an oh my gosh film for sure.
All right, and I don't know if you've seen this one, but if you like zombie movies and you haven't seen this one yet, Train to Busan. That is a must see.
It sounds French.
No, actually, it's Korean.
Korean for sure.
Yes.
Korean films in general, they're top notch, dude. They're really good at doing stuff.
And it's got the fast zombies, which I'm never like a big fan of. But the fast zombies in this one makes sense, and it's like they go there with their zombies and with their gore, and in a way that I haven't really seen too much with even like in things like The Walking Dead, like the TV show. At times the zombie gore is kind of toned down like just a little bit, but with this one, it's just like, whoa. That is on Netflix. So
For sure. I mean, if it's on Netflix, I'll like throw it on my list right now. What is it called? Train to what?
Train to Busan, Busan is how that's spelled.
I got you. It is on the list.
Yeah, get that
What's
on
the other one that you said before that?
The Burbs.
The Burbs. There you go. The one with Tom Hanks and such.
Yeah, and you asked if Shudder. Okay, to answer your question, the previous question, you asked if Shudder was worth it. To me, yeah, it definitely is. I think I kind of answered that, but to go like into further detail, yeah, it is. It's the cheapest of the streaming services out there. It's like $5 a month, but to me, it's $5 just well spent, because for a horror fan, I believe that Shudder is a must-have.
Word.
Yeah, and if you ever like get sick of it, then it's just like cancel it like for that month if you don't like see like anything good on there, and then when things get back up there again that you like, then just like resubscribe, just like you would do with Netflix, and like I do from time to time.
I get you. Yeah, I mean, like the only reason I'm hesitant with like streaming services or whatever is because like everybody has one now. So like the CBS or whatever thing, I've only seen that first episode of the new Twilight Zone series.
Yeah, me too, and I'm kind of mad. I was kind of mad whenever I heard it was only going to be on CBS. It's like, why? I wanted to watch that.
What did you think of that first episode though? I thought it was fantastic.
The first episode I thought was great. It's a Jordan Peele. You could tell he has such a love for the horror genre and such a respect for the horror genre, and you could tell that he had such respect for that, for Rod Serling and the episodes like from the 50s. Did he do it in the, I forget whether it's 50s or 60s, like, I don't know, like numbers.
Whenever that came out.
Yeah, numbers and dates. Hi, Modern Mom. How are you? How are you doing? But yeah, Jordan Peele, I feel, is one of the strongest horror writers and directors like out there in contemporary horror, because it's not like, oh, I'm going to do horror just because it's popular. Like, I've seen like some people do, unfortunately. It's, no, I'm going to do horror because I love and respect the genre, and I like seeing his passion.
Oh, definitely. It's honest.
Yes.
That's what I love about it. It's very honest. And we don't get enough of that today, where it's like, mirror to society type deal, and he does that a lot, but he's so unique and very, expressive and creative in the way that he does it, that it's just like not only is it like it gets the job done with teaching us and making us scared, but it's just like it's good, you know what I mean? Not to sound pretentious or anything, but it's like, yo, this was a good thing, you know what I'm saying? So like another like good movie would be like Silence of the Lambs, you know what I'm saying, where it's like it does the job, it checks off all the boxes, but it's also a good movie. Dang, dude, I'm trying to think, like The Exorcist, you know what I'm saying? Another one of those films where it's like absolutely horrifying, but it's a damn good film as well. And it's been a while since, we've gotten any type of like, producer or director that, respects the genre enough to just do that, you know what I'm saying?
But you still got some of the old guards still kind of floating around out there, like John Carpenter, and like I'm a big John Carpenter fan. His latest, the latest version of Halloween, I know wasn't directed by him, but he was an executive producer on it. But I did like how the director, David Gordon Green, and even Danny McBride was involved in the film, which kind of like surprised me. Like Danny McBride,
one of the screenwriters. I thought.
Yeah. And I just remember them like, and David and Danny being like, we want to show respect to the one that was made back in the 70s. And they sure did. It definitely had the feel of the 70s one. Like, I don't know.
Well, I haven't seen it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I can't say either.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's another one you should put on your list.
Oh, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to put that on your list.
I knew I was gonna have to do this. I was like, we're gonna be talking about horror films that I haven't heard about or haven't seen.
You're gonna have to add some more to your list. It's just like, oh great, my list is getting bigger. It's like, oh great, now my list is getting bigger. Like,
I can dig it. I mean, without having to stream or whatever it is, like, I don't mean to like make it seem like streaming is a bad thing or whatever, but not having to stream gives me a lot more time, if I'm gonna be completely honest. So there's time to watch this.
Well, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense, and I completely get what you're saying there. It's just like, we streamers love creating content, but then there's also 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, like, day-to-day life gets in the way all the time as well. I mean, it doesn't look like it, but like, I help run my family's restaurant or whatever it is. Like, I work a lot. It's like, just being able to unwind and being able to take this time off, even be on this podcast has been like so damn freaking awesome,
So just a way to unwind and just be like,
Yeah, for sure.
And so speaking of unwindings, like, I know I like to unwind, like, with some of my favorite horror films. It's kind of like contradictory. It's like, horror's meant to like jump scare and like make you all tense and stuff. Like, that helps you relax. It's just like, yes. So I had you kind of think about your 5 favorite horror films of all time. So I'm not going to be too focused on this question because this question is going to be specifically for you. So you said it was going to be a hard one.
Yes.
And I sympathize. But
okay, but I think I got it though, because I was actually talking to this about like with my brother or whatever, because I was like, yo, like, what other questions is top 5 whatever, and it's like, anytime we think of that, it's like, dude, oh man, that's too much, because there's always caveats. It's like, oh, well, what about in this genre or in this or whatever, and it's like, it always becomes a huge thing. But I think I got it down.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with The Collector.
Okay.
And then this is like, 5-1 type deal.
Okay.
I'll go with like The Conjuring, because I really love The Conjuring. There's something about it that just does it for me. Fudge, dude. Dude, these are all like newer movies. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I like Green Room, because it is an entirely different type of horror. It got me pumping and it got me feeling the way like a horror monster movie would, but with like real life trauma. And it's like, it's intense, dude. It's intense. I'll explain all of these films here in a sec. Damn, dude. My number 2 has to be a tie, because I love Silence of the Lambs and I really like The Exorcist, but neither of them can take my top spot, because the top spot is The Thing. Like, John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, that is, there's no, like, in my opinion, there's no better horror film. You get the best performance from Kurt Russell. You get all the awesome, special effects, practical effects. You almost get like not necessarily like a whodunit, but like a mystery type deal to begin with, and then it becomes like this sci-fi, like, oh shit type deal. The Thing does it for me. You know what I mean? That is my favorite film, but it took me a long time to get those 5. Well, 6. You know
6.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'm sorry I cheated there, but I had to do it. But yeah, are there any that you didn't know? So it's The Collector.
I did. I've heard The Collector, but I'm not too familiar with that one, and I don't think you said like why you like that one or why that was in your top 5.
Hold up. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, I apologize, but yeah, no, The Collector is about a dude that collects bodies, like a dude that collects people, um, and it's not set up that way at all because essentially it's um, this guy who's working on this house, and he sets up like all of their security features or whatever it is, but he's really there to rob them. And then they go off to vacation or whatever it is, and he comes back at night to, to steal their stuff, but the family's still there, and there's someone else in the house, and that someone else is the collector, and it's such an awesome premise for a movie. It's such an awesome setup. Um, and there's like horror, there's like supernatural elements to it, but it's still pretty grounded. It's pretty dope. Um, but it is more of like a modern film or whatever. So like there's like this one scene that's entirely unnecessary. It leads to a death, but it's like I don't know why that was there.
Okay.
What else did I say? Jeez, I'm so sorry. I'm like super happy about this.
Okay. Okay, so I remember you said The Collector. I know that you mentioned, of course, The Thing is your number one. Mine is 2. You said that 2 movies tied for your number 2 spot. The Exorcist and Silence of the Lambs.
I mean, they're both classics. So.
So I'm trying to remember your number 3 and 4. That's...
It was Green Room.
Green Room
for
and...
number 3, and then number 4 was The Conjuring.
Right. Okay. So, yes, Okay, so I haven't seen The Collector. I have seen The Conjuring. I haven't seen The Green Room. I've seen the 2 in your top 2 spot. And, of course, I've seen The Thing. How could I not? I always tell people, and they ask me, what's your favorite? It's like, The Thing. It's
The Thing. It's the one, yeah.
It's...
But, yo, if you're gonna see any of the films that I've like mentioned and haven't, I'm gonna say Green Room.
Green Room, okay.
Because alright, so like the setup for that one is like there's this like really small time punk band that is on tour, like they're doing like their little whatever tour, and that they're not getting all the best shows, and one of their last shows bails on them, so they get another one, but it's in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. And then it ends up being for a bunch of Nazis. And they see something that they're not supposed to see, and that's the setup for the movie. I can't tell you anymore. It's so damn good. It's one of my favorites. And it has the late Anton Yelchin in it, unfortunately. Like, rest in peace.
Yeah.
But he does such a great job in that movie. Like, he sells it for me with his franticness and his, scared or whatever. He does scared well.
Yeah, he's got the face for scared. So yeah, I've added that to my list, and then that one found footage film that you talked about, the French one, The Man Bites Dog, and
Man Bites Dog is so good. That would be my number 6, like out of the top 5.
So if you had if it was a top 6, that would be your number 6.
The show.
Yeah, it's like, let's just have a top infinity list, and we could just list every film.
This whole podcast could literally just be us being like, oh yeah, that movie's good. Oh yeah, that movie's also good. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole because there's so many good things that are out there. You feel?
Yeah, there is. It's just I could be like, well, I like this and I like that. Before we know it, 2-3 hours have passed. It's just wow.
So I have to ask you, what are your top 5 then?
Oh, Lori. I didn't think too much about this. Of course, you already didn't know my number 1 because that's pretty much our number 1s are exactly the same. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So my top favorite's The Thing because of the whole idea of the isolation of the setting was what always got to me about that film. Just basically because isolation is one of my biggest fears. Being trapped somewhere with no way out, no way to get help. Just like alien isolation, yeah. No way out, nothing. And that's, I guess, what draws, it just makes me about that film, but I also love it. My number 2 would have to be the second Aliens. Don't get me wrong, I love the first Alien. It took a while to grow on me in a sense because it was a bit of a slower paced film. But there are too many of my favorite scenes and moments happened in the second Aliens. Of course, Bill Paxton, who plays Hudson, is one of my favorite characters in the film. Why'd you put her in charge? And then the whole idea of Ripley's a badass. Let's just put it that way. She is such a badass, and just like whatever, like knowing that she's terrified out of her mind, but she's still able to like go and face these things. Those things. It's great. And
yeah, I'd say Aliens is like the most badass action film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, because that's what it's like. I know it's a sequel to a horror film. But it's like an action horror film, I guess you can say. But I always say, like, yo, if you're looking for a badass action film, watch Aliens, dude. That's so good. But yeah, I'm sorry. Continue.
No, and
I'm excited.
Okay, and my number 3 is going to be another John Carpenter film, like I mentioned, The Halloween from 1978. Again, it's a movie that had to grow on me. I saw it when I was 16. I was like, ugh, this isn't scary. But then I recently, not as of recently, watched it, but like within like this past year, it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch it again. I'm gonna see if I still think it's as bad as I thought when I was 16. And so I watched it again, and it's like, this is definitely not as bad as I thought when I was 16. Because at 16, I guess I found different things scarier than now. Now I like more of the grounded, like more realistic horror. I still like the 80s stuff, like the really out there stuff, but yeah.
Halloween's dope. That's a classic though.
Yeah, it's just like, and Michael Myers is just like one of those iconic killers. And so then my number 4 film would have to be The Strangers. So I don't know, like, I don't know if you've seen that, but the premise behind that is like it's more the realistic type of horror film, and it's absolutely terrifying because it's something that could happen to anybody at any time. And just like one of the most chilling lines in that film that just kind of like sums it all up for me is like, "Why are you doing this?" "Because you were at home." I was like, oh my gosh. And that's what's just so freaky. It's just like, they're not monsters. Well, not in the sense like, you know, the whole like creatures, but they're still like, you know, soul-wise, they're monsters. But you never see their faces. You don't know why they're there. You don't know why they're doing that. And that's what I like about Strangers. That's why it's my number 4. Now, my number 5, I have to put a zombie film on there. And it may be one that's a little bit surprising. I guess, like, I'm also going to cheat for my number 5 spot because I've got 2, and they're both zombie films. So it would have to be Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead, 2004. Because of the fact that I love the one that George A. Romero made. Don't get me wrong. He's always going to be the godfather of zombies. Without him, zombie films would not be where they were today. And I definitely, I fully respect that. But, I don't know, there was just something about the remake. I thought Zack Snyder did a decent job with it. And I liked the characters in it.
I like Ving Rhames in that movie.
Ving Rhames was... And I like that one security guard that started off to be a dick. I think his name was Jim. I think that's what his name was. I don't remember.
Yeah, dude, he's one of my favorite characters. He's like fucking nursery school or whatever. And
yeah.
He goes out like a badass.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, fucking figures. That's what he was like. And then my other zombie film that I tied for last place, of course, I have to throw George A. Romero in there. It would have to be Night of the Living Dead, like from 1968. That to me is just. I don't know what it is about it. It's just like the zombies, of course, it's just like you could tell, and even in black and white, it's just like they slap makeup on them. And it was just like, you know, humans probably like gray or yellow makeup just walking around and like acting.
And it still works.
Yeah, it's...
You can tell, but it works. And there's something about that movie. There's the franticness of it, the way it kind of like snowballs into things. Like, oh, okay. Something's not right. Oh crap, things are really not okay. And then the main character isn't even the main character, you know what I mean? So it's like it's such a great movie, but I think Romero's masterpiece in my opinion is Day of the Dead. I think that's his like defining work. Because it just deals with like, what if they're smarter than they are or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like that's creepy as hell. And then there's this like sense of hopelessness at the end of that movie where it's like you know, they got away, but for how long? Like they're not even like they got away from that situation and that's it. You know what I mean? Like humanity's pretty much fucked, and then the last of it was that. You know what I mean? Like that messed up and that whatever like far gone. So it's like, is it even worth saving at that point type deal? But you brought up, Halloween. Halloween is like one of my favorite, horror films ever as well. The way that I actually got to see that movie was through VHS or whatever. When I was younger, I used to sell like these little like Mexican candies, like these little Mexican gums or whatever it is. Because like I would have to spend like my weekends at this like flea market or whatever. And that's how I would buy my video games and films. You get me? Like that's how I would like, and this was me like at a very young age, like maybe like 6 to like, before 10 years old type deal. And the guy that I would buy video games from also had a bunch of VHSs, and Halloween was one of them. And he didn't care what movie that I got because he just cared that I got like he got the $5 or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
So I remember seeing that, and I'm like, Halloween, wait, like. That sounds awesome. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, that's scary. Halloween is a scary, whatever time of year, whatever it is, all this other junk. And then I forgot who it was that told me, but it was one of my aunts and uncles that was like, yo, that's the movie with Michael Myers. And I thought Austin Powers.
Like, oh, Austin Powers.
I was like, for sure, okay, this movie must not be that scary or whatever it is, right? I'll watch it. And I watched it, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, this wasn't funny. I was like, where's Michael Myers? And then they're like, no, that's Michael Myers. And then, I had to... I learned very early on the distinction between, like, names and junk or whatever.
Right.
I was actually, like, come to think of it, I was actually, like, very lucky when it comes to, like, all that stuff, because so many different points in time were condensed into one. Because I lived in a household where like everybody was done being a kid already, so I got all the leftovers. But yeah, you brought up Halloween. What was the one after it?
So the one after that was The Strangers.
Strangers. Okay, so that made me think of, and I've seen The Strangers, but have you seen Funny Games?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's a very similar premise, but the guys, they don't hide their faces or whatever, but they're just fucking with this family, and it's really messed up. Like it goes there, it has the imagery, it makes you feel irksome, but it's like these two deranged dudes descend upon a family, and then they fuck with them. Definitely check that one out. And then yeah, I don't know, that's so crazy. I like your choice in film. I like your whole variety there.
Yeah, it's like I said, I didn't like things that, I always will go back to the 80s because that's the genre that the era that started me in horror, and it's the one that I will always remember and always love because Tales from the Crypt also happened during that era and HBO, and I watched a lot of that because, I don't know, it's just like most kids would just be like, ew, that guy is ugly, and at 7 or 8 years old, I was trying to draw him in art class in elementary school. But, yeah, but I like 80s horror. I like horror that's grounded in realism. I like horror that has isolation themes. I like zombies. I like some of the older stuff. Yes, Dan, Creepshow is another good movie. I haven't seen the second Creepshow, but I have seen the first one. And I know they're doing a Creepshow show now. I don't remember.
Isn't it on HBO as well, or is that Starz or something? Because I know that show is supposed to be highly produced.
Oh, because Greg Nicotero is the one that's behind it. And I don't remember whether it's going to be on HBO or Hulu, or I want to say Hulu. Because that's what I heard.
It could be Hulu. I wouldn't be surprised. They're eating up a couple of things. They're trying.
Yeah, I mean, at times I tend to like Hulu a lot more than Netflix.
Me too, because it's easier to find stuff that I'll actually watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is about Netflix, but it just feels overwhelming. With Hulu, it feels like I'm channel surfing.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it.
Yeah, but have you seen Difficult People?
Mm-mm.
Or whatever. That's one of their like original series or whatever.
Oh,
they
okay.
actually have pretty decent original series. It's not horror or anything. It's actually like a funny one.
Okay, so
I feel like you would like it.
So just in general, just kind of series there. Yeah, I take like non-horror recommendations. I love horror, but it's definitely not the only thing that I watch.
For sure.
It's like, oh, right. Wow, okay, so we've almost been going for about an hour and a half. See, like once we get going, we get going.
Right.
But so let's kind of start in the winding down process now. So I'll ask you to give your final thoughts about things here in a minute. But okay, so this question is kind of like a bit of a speculation question. So your thoughts. So looking forward into the future, like even 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you think the future has in store for horror? So what direction do you see horror going in? Do you think it's going to be like horror now, where it's like a little bit of everything? Or do you think it will go back to just specifically doing one type of horror again? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, I feel like I'm gonna bring up an aspect that might lead us into another funnel of things. I'm trying to keep this brief, but like, video games, you know what I mean? So like interactive media in general, like some of my most favorite horror experiences are on, are video games, period,
Okay.
So like with the rise of VR and how accessible it is becoming now, and I know that they're releasing, more and more expensive things, but that means the stuff that is there is getting cheaper. I feel like if there is a focus on re-innovating, that interaction with it, that is going to help the medium more than anything. That's going to help the genre of horror. But as for the relevancy of it, I feel like it'll always have to do with the times. I feel like it'll always be a reflection of like what's going on, socially and politically. It'll always be, well, not necessarily always, because I feel like right now it's more of a commentary on like, social whatever it is.
Right.
But also when hasn't it been? It's just like much more of a mainstream thing. I don't know. I would like to see like on these, streaming services and stuff, like maybe not necessarily like original horror series, because it's like stuff like that has happened, but like more niched things. I would like to see, I don't know, like found footage done well. You know what I mean? I would like to see, the haunted horror, house, type movie, that type of era. I'd like to see the vampire movie again, not Twilight vampires, like actual vampires again. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't get me wrong. I read all the books. I'm not gonna lie to you. I read all the books. I didn't hate the books, but I also differentiated them from like what true vampires are and like the horror that was there and stuff. Like,
Okay.
I don't know. I guess to like answer that question, like that, I would just like to see, the classics done well again. And I know that we shouldn't go back and reiterate everything and remake everything, because it's not necessarily handled well all the time. But
Right.
if it can work, if we can get something like on the level of it again, with like, the classics, then I would love to see that.
So some more. So are you talking along the lines of like movies that maybe weren't necessarily done well, but now because like back then, but now we have the technology, like seeing more remakes? Because I know remake tends to be like a bad word, especially like in the horror genre.
Well, I just say like respect these stories, like take these stories more, seriously, and produce them and tell them in a way where it's like originally intended, like have the true feeling of it all, because it's like we've gotten stuff like Frankenstein. The Frankenstein Robert De Niro was like super, true to like the book type deal, and it was a good movie as well. So what I'm saying is like I would just like to see stories be taken more seriously, you know what I mean, within the horror genre.
Like, okay, that's definitely fair. And like you mentioned it, and I felt like it's done a good job of respecting the source material. Not to say the 90s one didn't. They didn't have like the things like back then that we do now. And I will say, like, yeah, all respect for Tim Curry. He was a good Pennywise, like, for the time. I feel like this guy that they got for Pennywise is also... I kind of like him a little bit better.
A little bit.
Yeah.
He's got the eye things, and he's got the smile. It's crazy.
Yep, and you've also got, like, the special effects and the CGI things, like, to be able to do that stuff that you didn't have, like, back in the 90s. But, so, yeah, so you're just saying more respect shown to, like, whatever source material is being used, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, things like
definitely,
that.
because it's like I don't know. I feel like even now, even with how mainstream horror can be, like I feel like there's still a lot of like cheesiness, like whatever. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like there are so many great novels, there's so many great like films or just stories that make you feel that irksomeness, that genuinely bring out that frantic feeling, and I just want to feel that way again. There hasn't been a film to do that in a long time.
Yeah, and you could also, like, put it to the point that where horror people can get a little bit case-hardened. Like, things are like, oh my god, like, did you find that scary? It's just like, no.
No, it's like I've seen it all already. Like, what can scare me at this point?
like-
I guess that's the fair point.
Yeah, horror games are good at that. Even ones that I played before, like in Isolation, there's still some points where I'm like, like things like
I
that.
loved Alien Isolation. I think the parts with the androids, I think give me more of a tense feel than the parts with the xenomorph. I enjoyed sneaking around during those parts because I felt more like, oh my god, they're about to see me. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I can get away with more with the xenomorph, but it wasn't less terrifying. It was just more, I don't know, frantic, more like anxious filled.
Well, this last playthrough I had, like, I was able to get a lot of bolt gun ammo, so I guess it took kind of, like, the tension out of it just a little bit, because, like, what? I've got all this ammo, boom, boom, boom. So
It's cool that you could play it that way. I've never played it as more of, like, an action-y game.
Yeah. And then, of course, like, I still, like, get startled by not only working Joes and xenomorphs, but also humans. It's just, like, so... Everything just tends to startle me if I get, like, surprised by it. Okay, so now let's really do kind of a wind down thing. So I'm going to have you, I know you said that you're on hiatus, but when you usually aren't on hiatus, talk to people about your Twitch channel, talk to people about where they can find you on Twitch, where they can find you on YouTube, your social media. So where do you usually kick about?
For sure. So, I'm actually kind of, getting back into the swing of things. So, you could find me on like Twitch, obviously here, Pika_Punch. Twitter is the same. I'm on Instagram. I like to post a lot of my food on Instagram. I'm not gonna lie, and I like selfies. I can't even lie to you. I mean, I like the whole idea of social media, so I partake in it. But on Instagram, it's Pika__Punch. And then I have YouTube, obviously. I just released that video. It's actually not necessarily a horror game, but it's based off of a horror movie, but the movie was bad and the book is good. World War Z. The game is actually good. The movie was bad, but the game is good and the book is fantastic. But yeah, I mainly do like Nintendo-based... Oh, crap. my thing fell. But yeah, I mainly do Nintendo-based things on Twitch. YouTube is more just like reviews, but I say they're thoughts because that's exactly what they are. It's just more thoughts on things. And then just the rest of my social media is just me, shooting the shit and stuff. I apologize if I'm not allowed to like swear or whatever.
No, have you heard me on stream? Yeah, I cuss like a sailor and beyond, so you can say whatever, like, be potty mouth. I don't care.
Word. So yeah, it's Pika_Punch everywhere. So I appreciate it.
So Pika_Punch everywhere, except on Instagram where it's Pika__Punch.
Word. You'll still find me in the thing. You'll see that that's not me, and it's like, okay, that's definitely this guy, not this girl.
Yeah, it's not that. It's that guy. Oh, all right. So, and with this, we are going to officially end this episode. So once again, Pika, thank you so very much for coming on to the podcast tonight and for being so patient about it having to be today and not yesterday. It's like, I appreciate you so much and for taking your time to talk some horror with me.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a really fun time.
I am so glad that you had fun and I enjoyed having you on here. Like, any final thoughts that you want to leave people?
Wu-Tang.
Yeah, Wu-Tang! Well, you have a good rest of your night and enjoy whatever it is you're going to be doing tonight.
For sure.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Once again, thank you all so very much for coming out to tonight's episode. And thank you to Pika for coming on and shooting the shit with me about horror. If you want to find this episode, I usually upload them after a week to youtube.com/Brandykins and to anchor.fm/Terrorific Talk. The next episode will be the following week on May 15th, around the same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. So I look forward to seeing you all, or if you're listening to this, hearing you all again. But yes, and as always, stay terrific, everybody. And until next time, bye-bye now.